let's visit a little bit about, where's the economic impact, right? We talked about, earlier about who wants a pipeline going across their property from CO2 from one state and they're storing somewhere else. But for those people who, the landowners or landmen that are working on an onshore storage project, like what's the biggest challenge that we've had negotiating these deals is education. What is this? And how does it make money and what's market? I don't know what market is because there hasn't been one. How does the landowner, what are you seeing typically for landowners, as far as how are they making money? How does this work for them? We know the benefit, the economics of the emitter. We know maybe the economics of the person who has control of the pipe. What's the economics for the people that are involved in these projects on the ground?
Yeah, well, that is definitely evolving, but you're starting to see some coalescing around some general framework. Look, I mean, because so many oil and gas companies are involved, they want to do things that are also familiar to them. So what I'm seeing is in the deals between the storage operators and the pore space owners, which is generally in Texas and Louisiana. Again, I don't want to get over my skis here, but it's generally been the landowners, surface landowners. You can talk about that and correct me if I need to, but for whoever owns the pore space where this CO2 would be injected into, they're largely, you see an upfront bonus, and that's just to secure the right for, a certain term, maybe 2 or 3 years, to give that storage operator some time to actually get a Class 6 permit, which is not trivial. And I think that's one thing to consider is when you think about term, is that has been a long process and can take a while. And then there's a construction phase. Once you get the permit, that's maybe 2 or 3 years again. So it's a typical upfront bonus with rentals due during those, yearly rentals on some percentage of the bonus every year. Of course, all this is negotiable. And then where the big money is made, in my mind, for the pore space owner comes in basically like a royalty payment. And what I'm seeing is mostly this is $1 per metric ton that is given to the pore space owner. Now, the one thing is we do have some go-bys in that the state of Louisiana, which is a very, very active place for CCS, and they have some great geology. You can go out on their website right now at the Louisiana Department of Natural Resources, specifically the Office of Mineral Resource, OMR. They posted the deals that they have done, and it looks very much along these lines. And so that's a benchmark. Right now, the most recent one is $7.50 per metric ton. $7.50 per metric ton have been the most recent deals done, with about $450, if I remember right, dollars per acre. So it's, and then there's there's different ways to do it. Is do you keep paying rentals after that? Most oil companies don't like that, but especially if you're, and that's really where the in that royalty payment, call it, the $7.50 a ton or whatever the number turns out to be, that's where the state of Louisiana, and where I think generally most landowners are going to make their money. Because if you're talking about, you have 200 million tons that you're going to put into the ground, well, that's pretty big money over time. Yeah. I mean, that's billions of dollars. And, you're going to be doing it in 10 million tons, especially on some of the larger sites in Louisiana, 5 to 15 million tons per year. So when you think about that, that's some real money. And I think that's where the storage owners, I think, as always, that's where they make money. Now, it's just always this, Brent, you know about this. I mean, it's all about whether or not you think there's a chance that you're going to get to the phase of the project where you're actually injecting CO2, right? Who do they have a chance of getting?
Yeah, whose wagon do I hitch to? Yeah. And one of the considerations we saw, everything that we've seen has been very similar to that. I mean, you nailed it. That most of these players are oil and gas companies. One of the considerations that, we worked through with our clients early on was, okay, what sounds familiar? How do we get past this knowledge barrier with the people we're negotiating with? So, all right, they're familiar with a bonus consideration. They're familiar with, at least in most cases, a delayed rental, right? And they're familiar with a royalty. So then it came down to, okay, who has the best economics on a given location, right? And there were places that we were successful because our economics were better in that area, that part of the state, and there were places that our economics were blown out of the water, by a competitor because they were close to their own emissions, and so they could pay more. Their economics made more sense to pay more, give more favorable terms to landowners. So, we always told landowners, like, okay, don't just, this is what you need to understand. This is why don't look at me as a landman as being a horrible person. I'm trying to run one over you. These are the economics of my client. It's what makes sense for us, in this particular circumstance. And also, you have to understand that a number you heard, on a project in Corpus Christi may not apply to a project in Jefferson County, but because of the circumstances.
Absolutely. Yeah. As a petroleum engineer, someone who's been working really in the economics and business side of the business for a really long time. Look, ultimately, this is going to be a very similar story to the upstream oil and gas business in that rock quality wins. And if you have good rocks, that is going to be valuable, and people will pay for it. Unfortunately, from a landowner perspective, you may not have a great view as to, the same view as usual as the oil company does, because they've got their seismic there. They're looking at how great it is, how much storage capacity. They know what it's worth. And so part of it is, making sure there's an education there and understanding how good the rock can be. But you said it earlier, you can't it's not going to be the same everywhere. There may be certain parcels of land that just don't have the storage potential that another piece of land may, 100 miles away. It can vary a lot. And so I think, but ultimately, the reason like the state of Louisiana can get $7.50 a ton, which is a lot, it's just a big piece of the pie. Honestly, it really is a pretty large piece of it. The reason they can get that is because the geology that the operators are looking at there is just really good, and scale ultimately is going to win. So if they can put in 500 million tons, they can pay $7.50 a ton, because ultimately they're going to make money. So the high quality rock is really critical, and so that may be hard for some folks to kind of come to grips with. That as with the upstream business, I may not have a great spot, may not have great rocks underneath my parcel.
I guess we'll see how that all shakes out. It's been a difficult sell for some people, but I think there's a lot of this, at least on the onshore side of things, where landmen really come into play. Things are starting to settle in. Everybody's kind of got their sandbox, and now we'll see how these projects go.